And welcome to the LMS show. Give yourselves a big hand. Hooray! As a young girl used to work at Mickey D's, tell me, she said, all my peoples is here. I miss her though. She was something else though. She used to tell me all the time. You know, she used to tell me all the time. Listen to this. She used to tell me all the time. I put the money on the counter to pay for one of the birthdays. In my hand. They have long fingernails on. And well, Leo, we get pretty good friends. Well, anyway. You know, this subject, I think, is very important, especially during the time. And look like, you know, the way how society goes, look like we don't contribute to nothing. A lot of people don't contribute to nothing. You know, that's a darn shame, you know, but. Now, do you want to know the oldest continuous intact free black community in the U.S.? Say yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to say? Do you want to know about it?
Yeah.
And who's the young lady next to me?
Sylvia.
So say it loud.
My name is Sylvia Moody Cassandra.
Give her a big hand, everybody.
Yay.
Sandy Ground. Tell us a bit about Sandy Ground.
Okay. To tell a Sandy Ground story, you have to tell a part of the United States story and its history in slavery. And slavery was abolished in New York in 1827.
Oh, okay.
Sandy Ground started in 1828. It is in the state and national registers for historic places as the oldest continuously inhabited black community settled by free blacks where descendants still live in the community. And we are located not in Brooklyn, not in Manhattan. We are located on the south shore of Staten Island.
Staten Island?
Staten Island.
Well, we'll leave it at that.
And I am from the Sandy Ground Historical Society. I am their executive director, and we operate a museum that tells the history of Sandy Ground.
What's the history briefly?
I'm going to tell you the history of Sandy
Okay,
Ground.
we're on the clock. Go ahead.
The history of Sandy Ground. Sandy Ground, the first settlers that came in 1828 were farmers, and then they were later joined by oyster fishermen.
Oysters?
And New York supplied the world with oysters. So what had happened with the oyster fishermen is that they came from Maryland, and they would come up to Staten Island on the off season to help to work to reseed the oyster beds. It was a win-win situation. The farmers made money because they rented them rooms. The oystermen got the white oystermen got their beds set up because they had these workers, and the workers made extra money. Well, as we got closer to the Civil War, but first I want you to know that the first settlers were farmers, okay? And the first name of the community was Harrisville, after the Harris brothers, who introduced the strawberry crop to Staten Island. Okay, so the farmers were there. The oystermen would come in, they'd rent rooms while they worked, and then go back to Maryland. Well, as we got closer to the Civil War, Maryland was like a border state, and they wanted to have slavery, but here they said they have to take care of the people. But here they had in their midst this thriving black community that was doing quite well.
Also, too, talk about oyster, because I went to down to the Jersey Shore, and around, and they have a museum down there. I think the Waterfront Museum, and they had about the oyster fishermen in around Camden, they had it around Camden, New Jersey.
It was an industry where you could work independently. I feel a little more comfortable if I stand up.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I'm talking to my audience. And so they began to pass laws to get the oystermen out of there. They said if you leave the state as a free man, and these are free people, there were always free blacks in this country at any given time. Just always remember that. I don't care what story they try to tell you, okay? And they said if you leave the state as a free man and you stay gone more than 30 days, when you come back, we can make you a slave again. Okay?
It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So they stopped coming up to sandy ground to make that extra money. Okay? Then they had the John Brown raid, and they passed a law that said...
Tell us a little about John Brown.
John Brown led a group of enslaved people to revolt in Maryland. They lost it and they ended up hanging him.
Yes.
But they knew that these people from Maryland, these oystermen, were involved, but they couldn't prove it because they met in their own churches and they met in their own schools. So then they passed a law that says it's against the law for you to gather for religious or educational purposes.
What's sandy ground? What's happening with it now?
We're going to get to that.
No, we have to know.
Okay. But if you don't know the background...
Yeah, but also...
Okay. And so, the thing that drove them out is they said that anybody who operated a skiff on the Chesapeake Bay, that skiff had to be captained by an 18-year-old white male. So they couldn't work, they couldn't go to church, they couldn't go to school, they couldn't make extra money. So they left. They were free people, so they left. And some of them came and settled in sandy ground. The community grew. 180 families, 2 churches, 2 schools. The economy switched from farming to oystering. And everybody, it's a place for people to come, black people to come, number 1, to find a job, and number 2, to be able to make a living, okay? And they built a factory along the water, and the waters got polluted, and somebody died from eating a tainted oyster, okay? And so then they said no more oysters. So the people began to move away. In 1963, we had a major brush fire that destroyed some 25 homes in the community. The community started out with 1 or 2, ended up 180.
Was it 1863, right? Was it 1863 or 1963?
1963 was the fire. So wiped out all of these homes. And of course, people were waiting because that's when they began that big move to Staten Island. Because, you know, the whites couldn't afford Manhattan anymore, and Brooklyn was getting pretty expensive, and so they all were running to Staten Island. They picked up that land as quick as they could, and now we're down to just 10 structures in the area that could be traced back to the original settlers. Okay?
Don't you have tours, and guided tours?
We have a museum where we offer guided tours of the museum. We have a film that goes along with it. We see about 2,000 school kids a year because they're not getting it in the schools. See about 2,000. Some from Manhattan, some from Brooklyn, lots, most from Staten Island, and very recently we just picked up a group from New Jersey coming over. We do senior groups. We do civil, social groups, and we do the children. We tell them, we say communities change, but the history remains the same. Right.
Give a big hand on that.
Yeah. And if they don't tell, we'll tell it. And we like telling our own story. So we welcome you out to the Sandy Ground. You can look at our website, Sandy Ground.
This is a non-profit organization.
Society.org. And we'll tell you when they're open. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday from 1 to 4. Come out, bring a group, come alone, and learn a little bit about African American history that you don't know. You certainly don't hear about any black community on the South Shore of Staten Island that's been there since 1828.
I would like to thank you very much for joining us today on the LMS. What's that name again? Your name?
Sylvia.
Sylvia?
Moody.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
And we're back with the LMS show, still talking about Sandy Ground Historical Society. This young lady worked with me, and, well, I buy products from her. You know, they say you can't approach, but other people, a very good friend of mine. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up to Cassandra Mary. What a presentation with the executive director. Give her a big hand again. I had to cut down the time because we on the clock.
I know. It's just a wonderful story to hear about it. She usually does all the tours in Sandy Ground, so make your appointments, book your time. That way you can hear the full story. So that was just a little brief excerpt.
Well, I told you this is Rip and Read here. You know, we ending the clock. They've been cited by quilting. Is that very popular?
Yeah, so a lot of Black people, our history is making quilts, and the quilts had actually a significant to do with with slavery. They were doing like little things in the quilt so that way you can know which way was north, so that way you can get free if you were coming from the south. Plus, we also have it that we do it for our own family history. They start, there's a couple of quilts of our own family history that's hanging inside of the museum, and then you can make your own, so you can have your own quilt for your own family. So they teach you how to do that.
Do you think preserving this is very important?
When I was younger, I really didn't care much about history and family stuff. When you're a little kid, it's boring. But when I have my own kids and I started thinking about it, it's like, wow, there is a history, it's rich, and it's disappearing. So
it's disappearing very rapidly.
It's disappearing.
Very rapidly.
Like, just from the time, because I grew up in Staten Island, from the time that I was going down into Sandy Ground to visit my great-grandparents, till now, it is not even the same place. I don't even recognize the neighborhood. It's ridiculous. And it disgusts me because they're basically pushing us out. So we have to work to keep our history going.
You by the water, right?
Kind of, not too far away from it.
Yeah.
But we have to preserve our history.
Yes.
We have to pass it down to our children. We have to be involved. We have to support it financially, with our time. We have to stick together. Nobody's going to do it for us.
And with it's been recognized by it's a National Historical Spot, right?
Yes, we are the Historical Society. We've been involved in different organizations. We've gotten different awards from different organizations for preserving our history. Sylvia does an amazing job to keep everything going, and we're looking for people to help us keep our legacy alive. We're looking for patrons, we're looking for donors, we're looking for volunteers.
We're not asking for money on the air, go ahead.
Yeah, we're looking for a board member. Anyone who wants to get involved to help preserve our history, start your own, just to keep things progressing. We're in the 21st century. We got to make sure that everything progresses along with it, but still preserving what makes that area special.
And you help make it special too, right?
Yeah, I've been involved for about 2 years now, and just in that short time, I've learned a lot of my family history, and I'm still learning. Our lives are so busy, it's really hard to stay involved, but we still got to make the effort to stay on top of it.
Give Cassandra a big hand, everybody. First I heard about Sandy Ground. Where is this at?
Yeah, Staten Island's forgotten, and we have such a rich history.
We do. They have others, and I remember talking about that, about preserving. I told you I went to the show. I went to, it's a nonprofit organization, the St. George Theater. It's a nonprofit, okay? And they mentioned at one time they were going to wreck the place down.
I remember that.
They were going to wreck the place down.
Yeah.
And then listen to this now. It didn't take a whole crowd of people to sit back here and save the place. One lady who was a dance instructor. And she had to sit back and convince these people because they were going to do it.
Yeah.
And they were going to, and I'm glad that for that, also too, we go local, the Apollo Theater.
Right.
Because they were going to Apollo Theater, they were going to turn it into a parking lot. Yeah. Somebody's parking lot. And through the efforts of, give him a hand, he'll hear it. We got Percy Sutton. Percy Sutton. Percy said, no, we're not going to have none of this. Yeah. And we preserve, the Apollo Theater was preserved. We got to kind of keep what's our own.
Right.
I think very important, as well, Elijah Muhammad said, you have to do for self.
That's right.
You got to do for self. You can't sit back here and wait for somebody to do. Well, they could join in later on, but you have to start. Anything you have to do, you got to start the ball rolling with yourself, right?
Right. That man in the mirror.
That's right. I would like to thank you so much, and you can come back and see us again. This young lady co-host, she's a.
I wear many hats, and I love being here. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, we happy to have you on too. And then I go out there and I see you out there, and I get my
Linda from Dairy Queen.
we fucking fun. Yeah, but I we sit
gotta
back.
get ice cream.
And we sit back here and talk and laugh. This sister gonna make it. And the Sandy Ground organization is going to make it.
Right.
And we would like to thank you so much.
All right.
Give Cassandra Mary and the Sandy Ground Historical Society a big hand. This is like the last. We're coming back. Well, with Mr. Parks. Let's take it down. And we're back with the LMS show. Young gentleman wrote 2 books, Sheltered, and it seemed like back in the saddle again, Sheltered again. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Mr. Parks. Give him a big hand. I know you can okay. Mr. Parks, good seeing you.
Thank you.
I remember we were downtown in Brooklyn, and you have been bumping to me and said, look, I got this 3rd book. We'll talk about that on another show. Shelter again. We got a lot of responses from this, off the YouTube, and especially the interview with your sons. I think that was the hit.
My 3 sons.
Yeah, well, they don't make shows like that no more, do they?
No.
No. Out the door. Okay. The shelter system. I've seen people, going into the shelter. People go into the shelter system for a variety of reasons.
Right.
How did you get in there the first time?
How did I get in the shelter?
Yes,
This book, Shelter.
Yeah.
I got into the shelter, my first book. Well, what happened was my sons were left by themselves. I was on my job one day. I had a phone call saying that my sons were by themselves. So I rushed off the job to find my boys. At the time, they were 6 months, 2 years old, and 3 years old. So I'm not going to get deeply into it.
No, you're not.
Right. So I wind up receiving my sons. And I moved in with my mother and my grandmother. It's like, they were like Yoda. They taught me the basics of taking care of children. Otherwise, my kids would be dead right now if I didn't learn anything. And the house was sold, to make things briefly. And I found myself in a shelter with my 3 babies.
Okay.
That's the first time.
How did you get out the first time?
How did I get out the first time?
Yeah.
I was in a shelter for 2.5 years, and the government finally said it was time for me to leave. So I received my papers, and I received the okay, and I went around and I started searching for an apartment. I found an apartment in the Bronx, and I moved in the Bronx near Yankee Stadium.
Okay.
And I was there for 2 years, and then I moved to Queens.
Okay. That's one.
Sheltered.
Sheltered. As the OG Archie song goes, back in the saddle again. What happened the second time?
Okay, so I moved to the Bronx, and that's when Sheltered Again came about. I was in the Bronx for 2 years. I met a young lady. She moved with me when I moved to Queens.
Okay.
Left the Bronx, moved to Queens. Been in Queens for about 5 years. What happened was things didn't work out with me and the young lady.
Uh-oh.
We were together for 5 years.
I'm gonna ask a question. I want to get personal with you. Was it her house or your house?
My house.
Oh.
My house.
Oh, okay.
Because I was on Section 8, so I was allowed to move.
Okay.
So she moved in with me. We were together for 5 years. What happened was she was paying some of the bills. She was paying the food. She was paying for the gas and the lights and stuff like that, etc. Whatever other bills there were. And I was just strictly rent. So when things didn't work out, guess what happened?
What?
I had to pay all the bills.
Yeah, pay the bills.
And that was out of my budget.
Uh-oh.
So I started to fall behind in my rent. And me and the landlord, we wasn't getting along after that,
No,
You're not going to get along.
They don't care.
You're not going to get along with the landlord. You're not paying your rent.
He don't care what it is.
That's right. That's right.
He
Just pay
wants
that
to
rent.
know. He said he wants the money. I remember one time the landlord at my son said, "Well, he complaining about him. How about does he pay his rent? Oh yes. He did a fast. Yes. Oh, because you got to have some place to stay.
Absolutely.
3 things that I always say to survive. 3 things. Well, I'm trying. You got money. You got to eat. Got to eat something. Got to sleep somewhere, right? And women. Those 3 things. If you don't have those 3 things, you can forget it.
Well, you know what? We need our women, because if you don't have your woman, then you're not going to get far.
I'm saying
As far as
no, I mean, nobody's not gonna sit back here and go for some broke man.
Not for so long.
Not for so long.
Not for so long.
If they're smart.
Right. Not if he's not trying, then he got it. Right. So what happened was
I want to ask you. No, let me ask the question. Okay. You can go on YouTube and run your mouth all you want. Put the camera in something. Run your mouth. I want to know how long did you put this? How long did you put this together?
Sheltered. It took me, I would say, took me about 2.5 years to do Sheltered.
Okay. How was it received?
Oh, people love Sheltered.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, people love Sheltered.
Oh yeah.
I sold Sheltered a lot.
I
did a lot of shows. I did a lot of cable shows. I did a lot of. I went to a lot of venues and I talked about Sheltered. People love Sheltered. I mean, who's not going to love a story about a man raising 3 babies?
Well, let me tell you
Very
this.
curious.
Well, that's why I took you because it was a regular other way around. So, another one.
Right.
But this was kind of usual. Yeah, well, it believes it leads, right?
Right.
So I love that. I love this book. Okay. As far as Sheltered, let's see. How did your son receive this all these many times? Like they were going back and forth.
Oh, it wasn't cool for them.
Huh?
It wasn't cool. You mean the combination of both books?
Yeah. How many?
Oh, well,
it
wasn't cool for them because it was very traumatic for them to be in there with other kids that had problems themselves. Coming from broken homes.
But you went
mothers stressed out, yelling and screaming.
You went to a family because there's different shelter setups, right? Like some for women,
right?
And then they have for people with families,
right?
And some for men. I know there's a guy that hang around the train station and ask me, do I have a dime or a dollar?
Right.
And it seemed like what he said that they don't feed him there. Is that true?
No, he choose to. We've talked about that. He choose not to go back to the shelter because they feed you. at shelters. Maybe at that particular shelter, every shelter is different.
Yeah, well,
so maybe at that particular shelter, men's shelter, he wasn't getting fed properly, but I'm sure they were feeding him. But they don't feed you healthy foods. So he probably wasn't receiving the type of, it wasn't communicating with his
system. Let me tell you this, because we got to have money on fire. He was kind of particular what he ate.
Right.
For the first time I told him, I said, well, he said, I said, well, here's, why don't you go get this, come on down here and go to one of the fried chicken joints. I don't eat that. You don't eat that. You up there, you know, you can't be choosy. You're going to sit back here and you hungry.
Right.
So, you know, he was, I remember, I think Orlando brother knows this, you know, this guy. The guy just hustling. You know, today I said, here, go get some water. you dehydrate. I won't see you when I come back home, you dehydrate. But also, too, do they have assignments? Like he told me one case he went to South Carolina. They put him on the bus and sent him to South Carolina, a whole bunch of
They'll do that.
You know. And that's why they wanted reluctant to give him some of the second time.
What was it? Did he tell you they found family over there?
No, they just, the city just put him on a bus.
They'll do that. They'll
send
do
him
that.
down
They'll
south.
transfer you.
Send me down south, and then they brought him back, and he was asking. I said, "Well," I said, "Well, this stomach was bigger than mine."
Right.
Because he got fed down there.
Right.
Like we were talking about being fed.
Right. Like I said, you know, every shelter is different.
Oh, okay.
Every state is different.
Okay. On that note, we would like to thank you very much for joining me on the LMS show, and give Mr. Parks a big hand. Now, and we'll be right back.